Am I allowed to day trade the funds inside my IRA account? How should I measure my performance? How do I know if I'm on track for retirement? Should I have someone else manage my account for me? These are all common questions we hear about growing the funds inside your IRA. An IRA can be a great investment vehicle, but you want to make sure you're on track for your own retirement goals and that you're not taking too much risk to get there. Hi, welcome back to BrightWealth. My name's Scott McLaine. I'm your host, and I'll be your instructor for today's lesson. As always, we're here to accelerate your financial success. In this episode of BrightWealth, I'm going to break down Stage 4, growing the funds inside your IRA, and I'm going to answer the most common questions. So, let's dig right in. Growing your IRA takes attention, and it's something you're going to do over the course of your lifetime. Now, you're going to have to make a decision when it comes to growing your investments. The question is, are you the type of person that loves managing your own investments, or do you want to have a professional who does this for a living manage your investments for you? Well, let's take a look first at the person who loves to manage their investments. This type of person loves to do research on different stocks. They've got their own investment philosophy. Maybe they have an investment strategy and they understand their horizon. They're all in tune with the emotional and mental fortitude and everything. They love this stuff. But the average person who's opening up an IRA is not necessarily going to feel so comfortable with self-managing their IRA. So let me go ahead and walk you through some tips to help you better understand it. The first is that you're going to have to know your tolerance for risk. And that means how risk adverse are you when it comes to tolerance for risk. Let me spell this out. Here we go. How adverse are you to the market swings on your account balance? And so if your account goes down $20,000 off of a $100,000 balance, are you comfortable with that, knowing that the other side of that is that you could earn $120,000? So you're okay with these ups and downs. If that freaks you out, then you have a lower tolerance for risk. If you're more comfortable with the ups and downs and you're excited about the potential upside with your investments, then you're more of an aggressive investor and you have more of a tolerance for risk. You're going to want to understand your tolerance for risk. You're also going to want to know your timeline, your horizon, your time horizon. And so we're going to write time horizon right here. If you can't read that, that's okay. Just know that that's the word that I'm attempting to write on the iPad, time horizon. And that really means how much time starting in the beginning of your life, down here, do you have, and then ultimately going across your life over here. What's your time horizon? If you're 20, then you're starting right here, and you have all the way until you're 90, until you're gone. So this entire spectrum is your time horizon. If you're starting your retirement account right here at age 45, and you're starting at 0, and you're hoping to retire by 65, and then you have a very small time horizon. So you want to understand this horizon so you know how much time you have in order to achieve your goals. That's going to shape what type of investment decision that you're going to make. Okay, next we're going to look at choosing your investment allocation. And that really is, I'm going to write this out here again. You might not be able to read my writing. I swear I did not take doctor training. This is the iPad. That says investment allocation right there. And what that means is what percentage of your money is going to be in stocks, what percentage is going to be in bonds, what percent is going to be in certain sectors, creating that investment allocation like we talked about in the last stage. And so what's your allocation and understanding what do you want to create for yourself? So next what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to research, pick, and buy your investments. And so that means, and that's an emotional time for some people because you're actually taking your money out of cash and you're buying a stock. The moment you buy that stock, you're going to watch that account balance going up or that account balance going down. And that's going to happen immediately. You might buy a stock and the price starts dropping and suddenly you just put You started with $10,000 of a stock and suddenly you're at $9,800 and you're panicking, you're wondering what you should do. Again, that's shaping your tolerance for risk and your comfort investing. But the moment you do put money into an investment, realize it is going to start moving and it is not going to stay right where it was the moment that you bought that stock. That's the idea. You're hoping that it's going to grow. And periodically on your own schedule, whatever that is, you're going to want to review and revise your investment strategy and your investment portfolio. So these are some tips on managing on your own. Now, in addition to that, if you're managing on your own, you're also going to want to take a look at the benchmark. And you're going to want to have some sort of a benchmark on your account. And what I mean by that is here what I have written on this timeline right here. This blue line is the benchmark, as you can see right here. And what we're looking at when it comes to the benchmark is something equivalent of the S&P 500. That's a great benchmark, and many times individuals or investment professionals will use the S&P 500 as the benchmark for how investments are performing. The S&P 500 is basically a collection of 500 of the largest stocks on the stock market. And when people say, how'd the stock market do today? Many times they're referring to how'd the S&P 500 do. And so if over the course of your lifetime, just putting money in an index fund and leaving it alone and letting it grow with the market would return a certain rate of return, if you're managing your investments, you're going to want to compare yourself when you run your illustration. Are you outperforming the benchmark or are you underperforming the benchmark? If you're doing all these tweaks to your account and you're buying and selling and making different trades and you're doing worse than you could have done had you just bought the S&P 500 index fund and left it alone, and let's say that returns a 9% for the year, and after buying and selling and trying to time the market, you end up with a 7%, you're underperforming something that would do on its own. If you're managing your own investments, you're really going to have to pay attention and look at these investments on an ongoing basis. And so have a benchmark and monitor how you're doing compared to that. That brings me to the next part. Are you going to bring in an expert to do this for you? And there's people like BrightWealth that manage investments for clients all the time. And so if we're going to be managing your investments, we're going to hold ourselves accountable, or our team, the Bright Advisor team, is going to hold itself accountable to a benchmark as well. And every time that they would meet with you to show you how your account is doing, we're going to look at, well, how would it have done had you not hired us and just left your money in an index fund? And then we would show how are we doing compared to that index fund. And hopefully in our client meetings, when we meet with our clients, we're outperforming the index. Otherwise, it makes a very uncomfortable conversation for our advisor. Nevertheless, those conversations are made, everything is transparent, and we're holding ourselves accountable on a regular basis. The Bright Advisor team, when I say we, that's what I mean. And so one thing to consider when you're hiring an investment advisor is, what are their fees? How much are they charging you? They're typically going to charge you between 1% and 2% for that service to manage your fund. They're also going to hopefully outperform the benchmark. And if you currently have an advisor working for you, you might want to ask them to run a comparison of how they're doing compared to how the S&P 500 did, or how have they done compared to the S&P 500 historically with your account. If they've been managing your money for several years now, let's take a comparison against the S&P 500. Also, when it comes to hiring a financial professional, you want to make sure that they're securities licensed. Insurance agents are great for selling insurance, but sometimes some of them represent themselves as financial professionals, like they know everything about the stock market or they know better than the stock market. They're not licensed or have been through the schooling to understand that, and what they're probably trying to do is sell you an insurance policy. Insurance has a role, but it's not a retirement account, it's an insurance policy. And so you want to make sure your investment advisor, your financial professional, has the Series 65 license, possibly a Series 7 license, and or maybe even a certified financial professional. Again, those are some of the common licenses. You're also going to want to check whether your investment advisor is doing active management or passive management. If they're using the word set and forget, That means putting money into it and never looking at it again. They're not doing much work on that. They're probably putting it into something that's not even in the stock market. And so you're not going to get the stock market gains. You might mirror them, but you're not growing with them. And setting and forgetting is not an investment strategy. An active portfolio manager is going to be making trades on your account on a regular basis and doing their best to grow your account. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and share a small little clip from a recent interview I did with our active portfolio manager who manages all the accounts for Bright Advisor and was in our studio live, and I had a chance to interview Charles Trular, who is the Bright Advisor money manager, and he does all the trades, does all the investments for the clients that put money with Bright Advisor. So let's take a quick look at that interview. So what separates an active trader versus a passive, or normal investment advisor? There's lots of investment advisors in the industry on every corner. What separates an investment advisor from an active portfolio manager or an active trader?
Sure. Well, there's two kinds of portfolios, and one is neither right or wrong, right? It depends on your situation. A passive portfolio is devising a strategy, different allocations. You might put some in stocks, some in bonds. Everyone's heard of that, the 60-40 portfolio, or finding the best things in different allocations to be diversified so that you can do well no matter what the market does. And then you buy those things and you just leave them. And once every 6 months, maybe once a year, you go in there and make sure that they're still there and they're still in the right allocations and the values are still the same. And then you leave it again and you just leave that go. It's not a bad idea to do, especially if you're doing it on your own, for your own IRA. I would recommend that's all you do, because you'll get what the market will give you. You're going to take the risk of the market. You're going to get the return of the market. Instead of trying to figure out and time the market and beat the market, you're never going to do that as an individual investor. So take that passive strategy and use it. It's also what a lot of investment advisors use. They will help you design that passive portfolio. Again, it's neither right or wrong. It depends on your situation. If you like the idea of that passive portfolio and you don't care to look at your investments at all, and just leave it and forget it. Sometimes a passive portfolio is fine, and they will help you design that. They'll implement it, and then once every 6 months to a year, they will look at it for you and determine if those allocations are still correct and move on from that.
And that means, as on a passive portfolio, that if the market's going up, you're going up with it, but if the market's going down, you're also going down with it, and you just sort of have to ride that out, right? The ups and the downs.
Usually.
Usually, okay.
Yeah, there's really not a passive portfolio allocation that makes money all the time. Or we'd all be in it. We might not even be on this video today.
So you went down the fall with COVID and then back up again.
Correct.
That kind of a thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that explains the difference. So the active management is looking at what trends are happening, what has momentum in the market, what has good fundamentals in the market, what does it look like over the next 2, 3, 4 months, 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes, and making different adjustments to your portfolio based on that on a regular basis. When you use a professional that does that, we don't use emotions. We have a defined strategy that we use. And when certain equities or bonds or stocks or companies come into that strategy and fit our mold, we will invest in those companies. And a great example of that is absolutely the COVID hit that everybody took last February, March, and April, where the market as a whole was down close to 30%, sometimes even more. If you see the momentum, you had a chance to see that momentum if you know what to look for about 2 weeks before that happened. And we did, and we saw that momentum happening. So we moved out of general market positions in order to protect what we have grown till then. So while everyone else is taking a 30% loss, if you do your active management strategy correctly, you can mitigate those losses. You don't win every time, but if you win more than you lose, you leave Vegas with money in your pocket.
So as you can imagine, you can understand why Bright Advisor favors an active portfolio management and having a professional that does this for a living. They just have such a breadth of knowledge and experience, and Charles is first class and is an exceptional person to be managing the money for your retirement account. So you have your option. You can do this on your own, and if you love doing it, go for it. Just make sure you're benchmarking yourself and holding yourself accountable. If you're going to have Bright Advisor do it for you or another financial professional, make sure you're holding them accountable. So I hope you found value in today's video. Please follow and subscribe to the BrightWealth YouTube channel. If you have any generalized questions, you can leave them in the comments below. We love answering those. If you have any specific questions about an IRA or your IRA for yourself, click the link below to schedule a one-on-one planning session with the Bright Advisor team. They're happy to meet with you. My name's Scott McLaine, and as always, it's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make.